Welcome to Real Estate Radio Live, an informative and engaging podcast discussing everything you need to know about the world of real estate. Your host, 𝗘𝗀𝗓𝗏, provides you with insight and guidance on how to buy, sell, finance, and invest in real estate. He also offers real estate tax management strategies, new construction advice, home improvement tips, and much, much more. And now, to guide you around the world of real estate, here's your host and Real Estate Radio Live team leader, 𝗘𝗀𝗓𝗏.
Welcome in, 𝗘𝗀𝗓𝗏 with Real Estate Radio Live. Thank you for those that are continuing to watch us on the live feed on Facebook. We appreciate that very much. We try to come to you at least 3 days a week with our podcast and try to keep the schedule as much as we can. It is Wednesday today, so unless we are traveling or out doing something or trying to have some fun, it is Mike 𝗔𝗕𝗎𝗪𝗔 and I come alongside. Mike, good to have you here.
Hey, good to be in.
We are here, the two Italian guys talking real estate, and we got a nice show. Hopefully you'll think that today after we're done.
Let's hope.
Yeah, let's hope. Before we jump in and get started, just a reminder, for 8 years the focus has been education and information. And what I mean by that, it's really important that I continue to articulate, I hope, as well as I can, that the reason we do this show is really to educate you, the consumer, and give you as much information and education as you can to make wise financial decisions in and around real estate. Pretty simple, pretty basic, but real estate is encompassing. There's so many things, right? There's financing, there's buying, selling, decorating, landscaping, building. You go on and on. You get the idea. Rental properties, investments, strategies, tax implications. So we try to cover as much as we can, and we'll continue to do that. For more information, go to RERadiolive.com. And lastly, make sure you download the podcast, because that way you could follow the show, listen to it at your convenience. You could get that anywhere. Just type in Real Estate Radio Live anywhere online, and you can come up and anywhere to download that podcast. All right, so today we're going to talk about two things, really. The so-called Super Bowl effect, now that is coming this weekend, and then we're going to spend a good portion of the show talking about unconventional financing. I think a lot of people would be surprised at what you could get with financing these days. I think conventional wisdom and what people think is, my God, financing is super, super conservative, and to a certain extent it is too in general. But you would be surprised the last year or so, what we call non-QM, and that's non-qualified mortgage financing, has really come to the forefront. We're doing a lot of them, Mike. So I was telling you earlier before the show that, I'd say probably 20 or 30%, so 2 or 3 out of 10 people I finance now is this kind of non-QM stuff.
That's actually, that's more than I thought it'd be.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so we're going to dive into that and tell you a little bit about programs. You might be surprised at credit scores and, down payment or maybe jobs. A lot of the stuff that you'll read mostly in newspapers online. Unfortunately, what you read is, lending's very conservative. Don't try to get a loan unless you have perfect credit scores, which is just BS. You don't need perfect credit scores. You do need a job.
Well, that's good.
Well, no, not. I take that back. You don't need a job.
Okay.
Right? If you're retired.
Well, you had a job.
Or you have enough money. No, think about it. Some of these people take some time off, and they have enough money, so they do the asset depletion program and stuff.
Right.
So we'll talk about that.
That's a good
So I just caught myself. So
there you go.
Don't run out and say, Joe said I could get a loan without having a job. So let me clarify that.
Don't
you could have a job, but you do need money and resources to be able to have income.
Yeah, there you go.
All right.
At least it's not like back in, before the crash when you didn't have to have a job or any money, and then you said you did.
Crazy.
And then you qualified for a loan. You basically just had to have a heartbeat. So
that was
interesting.
Those are crazy. People used to take applications and it would be like this. Okay, Joe, what do you make? I don't know. How much do I need to make?
Yeah.
$10,000 a month. Okay, $10,000 a month.
Yeah, sounds good.
Do you get any bonus? Not really. Do I need bonus? Yeah, you need $12,000 a month. Oh, okay, I get bonus. That's nuts.
It was crazy.
It was crazy times. I'm glad we're not dealing with that again.
Yeah.
So first, let's jump in and talk, Mike, a little bit about the Super Bowl effect. It's been going on for years. There's a number of reasons why. The time of the year, we're coming out of the holidays, weather, right? What's the kind of conventional wisdom thinking in this whole thing?
I just think that the mindset is that it's kind of the death of the holiday season.
Yeah, I think so.
Really, it's because
all the major things are done.
Yeah, because we had what was the most recent Monday? It was Martin Luther King.
Right.
So we had that in the middle of January. Then we just came out of New Year's, Christmas.
Right.
Before that, it was Thanksgiving to Super Bowl is like holiday season in California, at least, because. I know we have listeners all over the country, but I'm not even, I know what the East Coast is going through right now. We don't deal with those type of crazy adverse weather conditions most of the time. So what I'm saying is over here, really, I know the slowest time is really from November to right after Super Bowl. And my opinion is that Super Bowl is really kind of the death of holiday season. Yeah. And it's the last big thing people have at their house. And then they decide to do what they're going to do.
Yeah, it is kind of funny. I think there's a lot to that. Plus, it's almost like, there's this decompression. Okay, I guess I really, really now have to get back to work and be serious.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And
it's kind of funny.
And it really is only up until this week. I kind of gauge things by traffic level, too, on the way to work, to and from. And I started seeing it bump up a little bit this week. And I think next week, after Super Bowl, it'll probably in full force. So that'll be fun.
Yeah, it will be. Well... What this means really is just, again, for buyers and sellers, it's a great time. If you didn't see that the Fed held rates steady today, and when I say that, I don't want to confuse people. This is still a very confusing topic. I hear it all the time. Joe, did the Fed raise? But when the Fed raises or lowers, it doesn't necessarily mean it's changing the 30-year mortgage. And that's what a lot of people don't understand. It's a confusing process. Yeah. But the only reason I bring that up, Mike, is because by the Fed actually not making a move really tells us all that after they've made several moves the last year, that they think the economy is kind of stabilized. Yeah, it's doing okay, but it's kind of flattening. There's not this surge anymore, right?
No, I don't. And most economists, and at least the ones for the real estate associations, they have their own economists, and most of them have basically stated that they think it's going to be pretty flat year in real estate. So, and again, I think behind that is going to be an increase in inventory, and what I think we're going to see is since we last did the podcast, we saw a slight bump, the normal weekly bump in January, but it's definitely going to be a big jump next week. I know it. I can almost guarantee. I can guarantee it.
You heard it here.
I'll put it out there.
You heard it here.
I'll put it out there.
Mike guaranteed it.
Yeah. Well, and I gauge that by a lot of things. Obviously, historical trends, and then boots on the ground. I'm in a part of a large office that has a lot of listings, and almost everyone was like, after Super Bowl, this is coming up in this. So
that's a good point. See, so this is a guy who does his research, just FYI. He knows what's going on. Finger on the pulse.
Yeah, that's right. The podcasting makes me honest on doing my research, but I'm not doing that.
That is true. It forces you to think a little bit more and study yourself. That's true. So really what we're going to talk about today is with this effect. Again, as Mike mentioned, the wisdom is that there probably is, and there really is. When you look around, there's probably going to be a lot more houses on the market. So that's good for buyers potentially, right? Although, again, we don't know yet. It'll take 30 days or so, Mike. But so I'll ask you, if I'm a seller, and if like yourself, who you educate yourself, you treat it like a business. So if you have clients that are really thinking about putting their house on the market, and you're pretty sure, based on the data and the information you have, is that there's going to be a pretty good surge of homes on the market. Yeah. What are you saying to your clients right now? What's that conversation sound like?
Well, I think that there's going to be a surge, but I also think there's going to be a surge in buyers too. So I don't necessarily think it's a bad idea to put it on the market the week of Super Bowl. But if you have the opportunity or you have the choice to maybe wait a week or two and let that filter out, that might be a better option for you. So maybe mid-February, end of February might also be good to let the surge kind of thin out and sell off. But overall, I think it's just going to be, we're going to have a surge in both sides. Yeah. So it'll be good.
It's a good market either way you look at it. And, in our business, we talk to people every day that are buying and selling homes, financing homes. I have one particular client that just is looking to put an offer on a house over in the Fremont area. It's been an area they've been looking at. There's a certain area they absolutely love. They've been waiting for it to come on. And we were talking about it, and he's talking about price, and they're going back and forth potentially on $50,000 to $60,000. And I said, Jonathan, don't even think about it. Think about what you're saying. You've been wanting this area for this long. You finally got an opportunity. $65,000 in the big scheme of things on a $1.3 million house is nothing. I'm not saying it's money's to throw away, but you know what I mean, right?
No, I would be saying the same thing. You just got to look at the grand scheme of it and kind of step back from the emotional side of it, which it's hard. I get it. One thing I wanted to mention on the seller side of things, on top of what we already talked about timing wise, is pricing is very important. We talked about this last week, so I don't want to go down that rabbit hole again. But I just want to remind people and remind sellers to. You got to get over pricing from 8 months ago. It's not you got to forget about shooting for the stars. Be realistic. Yes, look at the comps, but really tighten up the time frame on those comps. When I say comps, I mean comparable sales. What's going on in the neighborhood? What pricing strategies are working for other listings, and what pricing strategies aren't working for other listings are also really important. So, just a tidbit there. Just keep that in mind.
Don't you temper that, Mike, by actually just showing them the details and the data? In other words, it's one thing for someone to say that, and it's another thing for a real estate agent to go, no, that's not true. It's another thing when you say, let me sit down and show you.
Yeah,
right.
The data speaks for itself.
Right,
it really does. So, and a lot of people in the Silicon Valley are data driven. So we as realtors really should, and you should be studying up on that and knowing what the stats look like and being able to show them that, because a lot of the clients want to see that. And it's hard to argue data. I
would say, as we wrap up this portion and we jump into the non-conventional financing, that wouldn't you say that this is actually a pretty exciting time? I think it's kind of a normal average market, which I know, again, I honestly think, why I'm excited about this, Mike, is because it's a good time for both buyers and sellers.
Yeah, no.
And we couldn't say that the last 3 or 4 years.
No, we couldn't.
Not for buyers.
No, not for buyers. And we started saying it the last 6 months or so.
Right.
And that trend is going to continue this year.
So we're looking for a lot of activity. So you guys out there, I'm telling you, if you're on the fence, and you hear this from me all the time, and you're considering now's a great time, especially as a buyer. And keep this in mind, too, and I can't tell you how much I believe in this, and over the years I've seen it over and over again. It's not going to change, and that is, if you buy a house as a primary residence and your plan is to be there 5, 7+ years or more, do it. Don't wait. Don't try to time the market, just like a good stock. If you like a stock, and if you want that stock, you go, oh, my God, I'm going to keep this stock for 20 years. Buy it, no matter what the price is. I know some people would say, wait for the dips, wait for this, wait for that. But it's different. When you're talking about a home you're living in and you're building a family or whatever case it is, it's a lot different than buying a stock. Yeah, no, I agree. It's a house. It's a roof over your head, and it's important. So and a tax benefit. Yeah, there you go. All right, so let's talk a little bit about unconventional financing. What I'm seeing a lot, as I mentioned, Mike, is, and this goes right alongside with the market. And the reason why this ties in, most of you might say, yeah, it makes sense and it ties in perfectly. It's common sense. But the reason why understanding that there's more money available for more people now is really, really important, is because a lot of those buyers and even sellers, think about this now, just follow me here. Not just buyers, but if you're a seller and you're thinking about selling your home, but then before you're selling your home, you're thinking, well, you're talking to your spouse or your partner or you're single, it doesn't really matter. And you're thinking, well, this is great, I want to sell my home, but I know my credit's a little bad. I had some late payments or student loan delinquencies or, whatever. And now you're hesitating a little bit on selling your home because you're not sure what you can do on the buy side, Mike. So so it affects both sides. And then if you're a buyer, you're wondering if I have less than perfect credit. And let me just kind of go through that for you quickly. 720 is kind of the number that most lenders look for. And what I mean by 720 is if you have a 720 middle score, for the most part, you're going to get the best rates based on your credit score, right? There are other factors, your loan to value, what you make, things like that. Debt to income, all if we're looking right at credit scores, 720 is kind of magic number. Some people say, well, what happens, Joe, if I have 800? Well, actually, believe it or not, if you have 800 credit scores, it does get you, in some lenders, especially jumbo, it does get you some better pricing. Yeah, so, as it should. You should be rewarded for your good behavior. Yeah, that's right. I like that. So what's really important, so that's kind of the threshold of credit. Now, some people would say, well, where does that settle, Mike, when like the lowest? Well, kind of 620. So 620 credit score is you're still going to get financing. You know, the rates are not going to be as good, especially if you're doing a cash out, if you're doing a purchase, whatever it is. They're just not going to be good. And I can't tell you how much worse, but in general, you're probably looking at about a 0.5 to 5/8 in rate difference between someone with excellent scores and someone down around 620.
It's a pretty sizable
It's sizable,
difference.
especially just depending on the loan size, right?
Yeah.
Here's the good news, though. You could still get, I tell people all the time, you could still get financing, and then you come up with a strategy to get out of that once you improve your credit. That's the important part about those people. This is one of the points I want to get across here, that don't let people tell you, please, get education and get information from people like us or people you trust. And the reason I say this, don't listen to your neighbors and your brothers and your uncles and some of these, I'm got to be careful what I say, that they don't know what they're talking about. Here's why, is because they'll say, don't buy a house until your credit score gets a 720. No, that's not true.
Yeah.
I would say if the timing's right, buy a house now. Work with someone like me or someone that's going to say, no, perfect, buy a house now. Yeah, the rate's not going to be as good, but a year from now, guess what? If we do this, this, and this, your credit score will be up, and then we'll refinance you into a better program.
And a good loan officer like yourself will be able to, and they'll be able to walk you through the things you're going to have to do to bump up your score or give you advice, because they can look at your report and kind of see, okay, this is what's going on here, and kind of show you where to get your act together a little bit, you know?
Well, it's true. And so unconventional financing, and the reason I want to address a little bit about credit scores, because that falls into the category. So if you have less than perfect credit, please still get advice. There's still opportunities out there for us. Just telling Mike today, we're helping some clients. It even surprised me. 580 credit scores.
Yeah, it's amazing.
We're getting them financing. Yeah. Well, it's because there are a couple of investors out there that they look at the whole file. They're putting 20% down. They make good income. But I could tell you right now, 97 or 98% of all investors, lenders out there in the world won't even touch that loan. But there are lenders or investors, keep this, if you hear this word, you'll hear it a lot, it's non-QM. What that means is the government and kind of the lending world works around this, what they call qualified mortgage, Mike. And so there's this little box, and they say, okay, if you fit in this box, then we look at it as a qualified mortgage, and we check those boxes. That means we could resell the loan and do a lot of things.
Yeah.
The problem is it's not a perfect world.
No. We all know that.
There are people that are self-employed that, God bless them, they take advantage of their taxes. So guess what? They have great cash flow, but if you look at their tax returns, they make less money on their tax returns for reasons because they take advantage of taxes.
Yep.
So there are a lot of programs that are really suited for people like that, self-employed, or maybe you take a break. The other thing we see a lot, Mike, is someone might be a W-2 employee and all of a sudden decide to start their own business. And so that financing becomes an issue there, right?
Yeah.
So these are all
or
things.
Changing jobs or real quick, going back to the credit going back to the credit thing. The other thing about that, even if they don't fall under that 2 or 3%, that if they have a low score, there's no loan at all. But still, you can help them through the process of figuring out what they're doing, and it might be quicker than a lot of people might think to get your score improved.
Very true.
And then you can do a rapid rescore, and there's all sorts of things that you can do. So, again, you hear us say this a lot on this show, and we've been saying it for years, is that set out a plan, have a conversation. It's not going to kill anyone. Don't be afraid to have that conversation, because even if it doesn't work out now, at least you can set a roadmap to making it happen.
Right. No, absolutely.
So I just wanted to.
No, it's a good point. There's so much around this, and we could go on and on, but I want to try to hit the high spots before we duck out today. And the other one that comes up a lot, Mike, that a lot of people don't know about is, you have two people on a loan, whether it's to a spouse, or it could be partners, or it could be, one person and a cousin or aunt, no matter what it is. So here's the point. If you have two people that are going to qualify on a loan, and we see this sometimes too, and one person has, pretty poor credit, and the other person has excellent credit or good credit, in some cases, what we could do is drop the one person off the loan.
Yeah.
Now, that's easier said than done. If we need their income, we can't.
Right.
And then there's some investors that will say, well, the income earner, who is the highest income earner, some investors will say they will take the middle score of the person who makes the most.
Okay.
So there's a lot of these little,
Yeah.
you know, the little things that most don't know about, and this is why the message I want to get out today that Mike and I really want to share with you is don't just believe what you read and what you hear. If you're really thinking about buying a home or selling a home because you're nervous about selling a home because now you have to go buy and you don't think you can, you know, talk to someone like Mike about that. On the financing side, talk to someone like me or someone you trust. On a regular basis, do that because it costs too much to wait. I mean, you heard about the cost to wait, and there's a lot to that, or getting misinformation. So those are things to think about. The other thing, when we talk about non-qualified mortgages, are different ways to get financing in unique ways. We talked about a difference in credit score. We talked about job differences a lot. We also, you know, we touched on this before, but believe it or not, and I joked about it when we started, you could get financing without a job. But there's a little asterisk next to that. So what that means is, for instance, someone's retired. They have retirement income. They have pension. They use it, you know, their investments. That's income. Let's say someone's taken some time off work, and I've seen this before. They've made a lot of money in a tech business or something, and they decide to take a couple of years off. They're 48 years old, and they got $5 or $6 million invested. We could look at those assets and turn that into income. So these are all things.
That's actually not that uncommon
in this
area, you know.
It's true.
So
it's very true. So we don't have time to cover everything from A to Z, but the message today is, in the last year to year and a half, there are a lot more options for people with less than perfect credit, people that don't have the traditional job, someone that's maybe switching careers, someone that's possibly even from another country. We see a lot of that too, visa type stuff. You know, there's a lot of that type of thing going on. You would be surprised. And there's more and more coming, and one of the reasons is because there's an appetite for it. It's supply and demand. Most of you don't know anything about business or, you know, any industry. It's really about supply and demand, right? It's the same on the loan side. What the lending world has discovered, Mike, the last couple of years is there are a lot of need for this non-QM stuff. So since there's an appetite for it, then guess what? They'll create programs to try to accommodate.
Absolutely. No, it's good.
So
it's good. It's, you know, we need that to accommodate as many people as possible trying to, you know, buy houses. So it's good.
No, absolutely. So keep that in mind, especially on a purchase. Remember, too, I'm just going to review quickly. Depending on the status, there's 100% financing. Certainly, if you're a veteran, and if you are, that's a great thing to take advantage of. Unfortunately, in this area, we don't get the opportunity to work with many veterans and a lot of people with these 100% programs because the prices are so high around here in this specific area. But throughout the nation, I know there's people that listen to this podcast in other areas. Take advantage of that 100% financing for the VA loans. There's, you know, 3% finance, 3% down with one loan. There's 3.5% down with FHA. There's 5% down. I would say that in general, if you want a combination of the best pricing available and to try to avoid mortgage insurance, try to see if you could come up with a minimum of 10% down. That would be a goal if you could do that. If you can't, again, remember that there are variances there, and you could get financing much lower than that much down.
Yeah, and there's some good programs out there at the 10%.
80-10-10.
There's a 90-10 conventional.
There is.
So, yeah, I know it's good. There's a lot of programs out there that people aren't aware of. Everyone's so ingrained of the 20%.
That's true.
You know, the 20% is like hammered into their brain, but it's just not. It's not true.
So before we sign off, remember, you heard it from Mike and I. You don't need a job. You don't need excellent credit, and you don't need what else? What else do you not need? You don't need someone to give you a bunch of BS.
Yeah,
that's what you
there
don't
you
need.
go. Yeah, but
get
just
someone who knows what they're doing.
Don't quit your job tomorrow because of what Joe just said.
That's true. Don't quit your job and try to buy a house.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to sign off here for the day. Thanks again for taking the time, Mike. Again, for those that want to get a hold of you, what's the best way to reach you?
You can go to my website, MikeDSells.com, or 408-630-0101.
Very good. And as always, if you want more information, go to RERadiolive.com. Share the podcast with your friends, family, coworkers. We'd love to have you download it and follow it. Take care. Have a great afternoon.
You've been listening to Real Estate Radio Live. For more information on today's program, visit 𝗟𝗡Radiolive.com. That's 𝗟ERadiolive.com. Subscribe to our podcast. Discover more at 𝗟ERadiolive.com.